Alright, ladies and gentlemen, MrSotko here. Welcome back to the channel. Got a whole bunch of good news stuff for you today, and got a little bit of TA for you as well, which I usually don't really care for, but in this situation with crypto dumping, it may be a bit more relevant than ever. So, the first story I have for you guys today is that Bitmain, our good friends at Bitmain, everybody loves Bitmain! Woo! Is approaching 51% of the total Bitcoin network hash rate. So the ASIC manufacturer, cryptocurrency mining giant Bitmain claimed 42% of the total blocks found on the Bitcoin network from the past week. So Bitcoin.com and Antpool, which are both owned by Bitmain, currently comprise of 26.6% and 15.3% of the network hash rate, respectively. And Bitmain Technologies, the Beijing-based Bitcoin mining company, reported astonishing profits in 2017, taking in between 3 and 4 billion of pretty much our dollars. All right, great. So Bitmain has a big leg up on its competitors by manufacturing and using its own products in the mining process. It manufactures application-specific integrated circuits, or ASICs, miners that are able to mine Bitcoin and other, of course, cryptos, as we all know by now, much faster than GPUs. So this is the latest Bitcoin mining pool in the last 7 days. So Antpool is shown at 15.9%, and Bitcoin.com at 25.5%. So these numbers are a little off, but either way, you can see that gigantic chunk of pie they own, because we all love our friends at Bitmain. The number of 51% makes many people in the cryptocurrency space quite nervous, and I wonder why. It's a number often associated with loss of decentralization and immutability. What would happen if Bitmain were to reach 51%, and what are the possible ways of keeping Bitmain out of a singular majority position? It wouldn't be the first time in Bitcoin's history that 51% was achieved by one company. However, in 2014, mining company Gash crossed the, that's a interesting name for a mining company, crossed the 51% mining pool threshold, causing a big controversy in the community. And so here's the warehouses that I always talk about that for some reason I just never have a picture of whenever I talk about them. But this is Bitmain. And these are their warehouses. They even have some basketball courts for their employees around. Awesome. Really good job, Bitmain. With all your $3 and $4 billion, you know, I'm glad you provided a basketball hoop. But supposedly, these are all filled with ASIC miners, so S9s likely, possibly some models that they've never released, possibly stronger models. Who knows? With Bitmain, considering they hide, you know, some of their ASIC miners for a long time, like the Monero miners, and then they just suddenly come out with Zcash miners. So there could be other things in here that we don't really know about. But supposedly they have 7 or 8 of these with S9 miners for Bitcoin, and then they have one dedicated to Litecoin as well. So one solution that Gash proposed was to ask miners to move their resources into different pools, taking the majority advantage away. It also urged any company in the same situation in the future to do the same. It would be a slightly different situation, however, with Bitmain, as they are one large mining corporation. Gash was just a collection of many small miners, so it's a totally different story, as Bitmain has their own miners and they have their own pools, whereas Gash was just a pool, and a lot of people, there was just way too many people on the pool. So they kind of did the right thing, was like, hey, can some people leave this pool? And they did. So another unlikely solution would be to change the Bitcoin proof-of-work algorithm. That is quite unlikely due to security issues that could arise. A similar situation happened after currency Monero hard forked into a proof-of-work algorithm that left the community divided in regards to the true goals and visions of the project, which I kind of disagree with. There were many leftover Monero hard forks. There was like Monero Classic and Monero V, I think, or something like that. Anyway, there's a bunch of Moneros that were left over, but nobody uses those, and everybody just still mines the original Monero that had hard forks. So nobody really... honestly, nobody's really divided in that, in my opinion. You know, I didn't really see much of that. To be totally honest, everybody kind of knows what the original coin was, and they moved all to that original coin. And that kind of happened with Ethereum Classic as well. Everybody realized that Ethereum was the original one. All the original developers and Vitalik Buterin went to Ethereum rather than just staying on Ethereum Classic. And as you can see by the hash rate, Ethereum Classic is nowhere close. So moving on here, away from our just such good friends at Bitmain. God, we love Bitmain. Privacy coins are one of the greatest emerging threats to the U.S. national security. Uh-oh. So last week, a top official from the federal law enforcement agency reportedly requested help from Congress in combating the use of privacy coins for illicit purposes. We should consider additional legislative or regulatory actions to address potential challenges related to anonymity-enhanced cryptocurrencies. So, you know, reading into this a little bit more, so they're talking about Monero and Zcash sort of specifically, but any other coin that is anonymous as well, that hides the public keys and scrambles them so you can't really see who you receive Monero from or who you're sending it to. But reading into this a little bit deeper, it seems like the government sort of has a good watch, as there's many articles already written on it, and even Edward Snowden says that basically the NSA can track anybody with Bitcoin, even though it's not too hard, right? So I have a public key that I've you know, and every time you log on to an exchange and you make a new deposit with Bitcoin, every so many weeks or days or so, you'll see that you have a new key. Well, you can still use that old key in many situations. In fact, the key that I have for my donations, I'm just kidding, on my channel, is a key that I was pretty much originally given a long time ago. It was one of my original Bitcoin keys. And so because of that, or at least a key that I started, you know, when I started doing crypto videos. So anyway, that key still works. However, if I choose to, you know, create a new deposit public key or a new deposit, you know, with Coinbase or Binance or something like that, I'm going to get a different key just about every time. But you can still use those old keys. And with that, you know, if I made a transaction and somebody received it and then they received it and such, you could follow that block all the way back, and you could find my public key, and you would know that that came from me. So Bitcoin is slightly anonymous, but it's not entirely anonymous. So you have this key, but it can easily be associated with somebody as long as you knew that that person had that public key. And so the NSA is quite powerful, let's just say, to say the least. A $2.5 trillion budget that disappears, and that senators and people like that, they're just like, hey, we don't know where the money went. How do you not know where $2.5 trillion went? I don't know. Maybe it went into the NSA supercomputers who hook into the big old fiber optic lines that go across the ocean and things like that. And in fact, we have submarines, and so do the Russians and many other countries, that can just dive to the bottom of the ocean where it's not too deep, and then tap into those lines and actually get communication from the internet from them. So not too hard, as long as you got a lot of money. And so they're watching Bitcoin and some of these other crypto, just mostly probably for people that are making way too much money on it. Some people probably doing many huge illegal things. So if you're like a normal person, likely the government's probably not going to come after you for using Bitcoin. Obviously not. But it's just the fact that they can. So they're not really worried about Bitcoin. Why? Because if you read between the lines, they can already track Bitcoin. But they can't do it with Monero and Zcash. And that creates a problem for them and frustration. So some newer cryptocurrencies have features that make tracing of them quite complicated. These new anonymity-enhanced cryptocurrencies are clearly ripe for illicit use in an effort to subvert legitimate law enforcement inquiries. Although it is more difficult to trace the movement of illicit proceeds using these newer anonymity-enhanced cryptocurrencies, it is not possible. Impossible. Geez, I wonder what you're doing, government. One of the greatest emerging threats to U.S. national security. Sure. Is it yourself? Or is it cryptocurrency? I wonder which one it is, government. Some members of Congress, like Representative Robert Pittenger, wow, that's actually really close to my name, of North Carolina, are already on board with increasing government regulation in regards to privacy coins. One of the greatest emerging threats to U.S. national security is the illicit use of virtual and cryptocurrencies. The Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN, unsurprisingly shares a similar opinion. Oh, do they? After citing $1 billion in cryptocurrency-denominated ransomware payments and $1.5 billion stolen in exchange hacks over a 2-year period, Thomas Odd, Associate Director of the Department Treasury Bureau, noted, "We have seen virtual currency exploited to support billions of dollars in what we would consider suspicious activity." So just because you're using a anonymous crypto like Monero or Zcash doesn't mean the government isn't hard at work. And the NSA, with their incredibly powerful computers that probably blow everything out of the water, you could probably Google, what's the most powerful supercomputer in the world? And, it's probably like something in Japan or something. Oh, the Japanese, yada, yada. I'm sorry, I didn't do this research before. I probably should have. And you'll be like, wow, that's a really fast computer. It's so many exaflops or whatever. But let me just tell you that the NSA probably has something that it's double that or triple that. And, when you think about all the things that we have seen coming out, in terms of quantum computation, there's two main ones. There's the D wave, which is like basically type A of a quantum supercomputer, and then there's the Google chip that they're making. I can't remember the exact name of it, but that's like type B. So there's these two different types of quantum computers, and while quantum computers are not good for things that I'm doing right now, or browsing the internet or playing games, because they're very uncertain, they're very undeterministic in terms of their computation. So like if you put in some kind of thing that could release a probability afterwards, a probability of such, you're going to get this massive probability line. Whereas a normal computer, if you're like, hey, solve me this problem, it has to work and work and work until it finds that one problem. It can't give you multiple problems that comes out with it. That's what a quantum computer does. It always gives you these multiple solutions. And they're really good at database. They're really good at AI recognition and AI and facial recognition and things like that, because they can put a bunch of things together at once. And so you see these D-Wave and Google coming out with these chips. And I think everybody would be a fool, a little bit naive maybe, to think that the government hasn't already been working on quantum computers for a very long time, or is not very, very interested in quantum computers. When I mean the government, I usually mean the U.S., as they're usually the one with the most outrageous budget, but there are likely other governments as well, probably Russia working on them as well, probably China. All kinds of governments are probably doing it. But I would imagine the U.S. is probably ahead, as they always are, secretly, like in terms of our internet and our education and things like that. That's behind, because they're like, hey, we don't need no money for education. Let's take that $2.5 trillion and just sweep it under the rug. Oh, I don't know where it went. I don't know where it went. Now we can make our Space Force and our Blackhawks and stealth bombers and stuff, and then be like, release them 17 years later in Popular Mechanics. Look at our brand new stealth bomber. Yeah, we've been using that since 1982. Anyway, so yeah, keep a watch for that, because government can see what you're doing. Bitcoin could easily bottom at 2,500, claims analyst. So we'll talk about the Bitcoin price in a little bit here, and what had happened the other night, the past couple days here. There's nothing preventing 2,500 from being the bottom. True. That's kind of like saying there's nothing preventing an asteroid coming and hitting the Earth and we all floating off into space. True. But what does that even mean? So various analysts and experts have weighed in on Bitcoin's current woes, providing their opinions on what the future holds for the first and foremost crypto. One such expert is Louis Carranza, founder of London FinTech Week, who told that despite reaching yearly lows, there are still plenty of reasons to remain bullish in the long term. So crypto is unpredictable. Welcome to crypto. There are massive spikes and drops. 4,500 could be the bottom, but there's nothing preventing 2,500 from being the bottom. And see, this is kind of why I don't like TA so much and people's predictions. Now, I know I made my own prediction of 25 to 35,000 by the end of the year. Is that going to happen? Maybe. It doesn't really matter. It's more like a personal challenge, if you will. But these people are really, really very vague about it, right? If I'm like, man, you know what? I wonder what Bitcoin's going to be tomorrow. It could be 5,000, but there's nothing preventing it from being $1,000. It just doesn't mean anything. Like I could say whatever. Like tomorrow Bitcoin's going to be 15,000. There's just absolutely no reason that Bitcoin can't go to 1 million though in 3 days. And you're like, well, that's true, but how likely is that going to happen? So for Karanza, the cryptocurrency market woes are still a result of necessary growing pains as the industry matures from stupid money to more intelligent money. And I kind of agree on that because everybody just kind of FOMO'd in the tens of thousands of Bitcoin towards the end of 2017 when it was really, really popular, and Google searches were way up and volume was way up because everybody was just FOMOing in. When the price went down, everybody's like, I don't need this anymore. I don't like this. And they just kind of went away, not realizing that prices go back up eventually, or that this technology might be the future. Now, again, as I always say, Bitcoin is not necessarily a future. Bitcoin could go to zero. But other coins are going to remain. Litecoin could go to zero. So none of these coins are necessarily the future. However, I think that blockchain is going to get better and better and better over time, and that blockchain could be the future because you don't need a coin. You don't need a coin with blockchain. It doesn't have to exist. So a lot of these companies making their blockchains for their intelligent whatever for their company, then they release a coin and then they sell it as an ICO. That's just unnecessary. It was just a cash grab essentially. You can use blockchain as an immutable source of smart contracts and whatever, what have you, that are unchangeable, unfallible, immutable, without a coin. So again, Bitcoin is not necessarily the future. Bitcoin won't be mined out to 2140, and by 2140 it's going to be it's going to be a whole different planet. We could get struck by an asteroid and just be exploded into pieces. We could be in space by then. We could have men on Mars. We could be orbiting Jupiter with men in it, looking at it and getting horrible radiation. But they'll probably fix that by then. Anyway, I'm just saying that 2140 is a long way away. It's 120 years away. 120 years before this, we barely had combustion engines. We barely had phones. So it looked like a whole different thing. If you went into a city in the year 1900, it's going to look totally different than it is today. People walking around with iPads and all this computing power of the gods in their hands, Even from the 60s, if somebody showed you this and you were like, hey, your ENIAC computer has what? And they're like, it's 1 megahertz. It's incredible. It can do 2 plus 2 in under 7 seconds, right? It can bring us. A whole tape of paper comes out of this thing, and it can calculate 42 digits of pi, and it only takes 1 hour. You know what I mean? And you're like, well, this thing is like 2 gigahertz, and it has like 4 cores, and it can. Wow, that's what I'm saying. Is that Bitcoin, by then is going to be so antiquated. It's going to be crazy how antiquated it is. So it's not going to last forever. But blockchain will, probably. Again, that TA for you. So, when people are saying it could be 2,500 or it could be 4,500, I'm just not so sure about that. But have we seen the bottom yet? Again, I'm not sure, but, it's not looking too great just yet. We're still consistently falling and then just barely climbing back a couple hundred and then falling a few hundred. So we're taking 1 step forward and 2 steps back. Just about every week in crypto, and so it's a matter of time before it either really goes one way or it goes the other way. So we're very stagnant at the moment, but we'll have to see. And everybody keeps saying, oh, all the money from Wall Street's going to be coming in, and I think people are going to have some rose-colored glasses when Wall Street comes in, because it might raise the price, but trust me, it's not just going to raise the price. They're going to take all the Bitcoin, and you're going to be left with a $20,000 Bitcoin, but when you want to buy Bitcoin, you're going to get this tiny, tiny little amount for your $100 instead of today, where you're getting quite a lot when it's only $6,000. So China's latest government-backed crypto rankings put EOS first and Bitcoin 17th. So this makes sense. China is pretty, to say the least, fairly communist still. They kind of don't want that word being thrown around, but they're a pretty centralized government, to say the least. So this really makes sense that they're like, yeah, EOS is first, one of the most centralized currencies that come out in a long time. Only second place to Ripple. The second round of China's state-backed monthly ratings of cryptos and blockchain project has been released. Dubbed the Global Chain Technology Evaluation Index. Wow. This latest round was announced at the Shanghai Science Hall because we're just so much science behind EOS. EOS is first, Ethereum is second. I agree with Ethereum being second or first. But China Monthly Global Public Chain Technology Evaluation Index. So it was 30 that was analyzed, and Bitcoin was 17. So I'm wondering what the other ones are as well. But I'm sure it doesn't matter if they want to rank EOS #1 in the world. Did they just look at like how much money they made with their year-long, unnecessarily long ICO, or I'm really confused. So EOS's top ranking is attributed to the outstanding technical advantages in transaction confirmation efficiency, network throughput, and transaction costs. Well, there's no transaction cost because all the block producers, all the 21 people that were chosen, get all of that money. That's why it's like free, because other people are making money every time. And it's really centralized. Oh man, you guys got some some really great scientists on your side, don't you? Well, I could see the EOS's mainnet reset mishaps since going live. The network has faced technical issues and criticism, and for freezing some accounts. So I bet China would love that, right? Because they could just freeze accounts. They're like, oh, let's just talk to this node producer over here. We're the government, and we're just going to have a nice little conversation with this node producer, with this one of 21 people, and we'll be like, hey, could you freeze some accounts and maybe pass that along? Or, you know, bad things might happen to you, like the mafia, like everybody's been saying about EOS, but what do I know? Anyway, so let's move on from that, because EOS just... So Bitcoin was supposed to be above 10,000 by now, but it's at lows not seen this year, or for quite a while. So this was supposed to be the time that Bitcoin's price would be ripping higher, according to the predictions made by many analysts over the course of the year, because we always want to listen to analysts, because we love that TA with Bitcoin, because it doesn't have any kind of backing to it. Like stocks do, and you could be like, hey, Apple stock's going to go up to blah, 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 because they're going to release this new thing, or they've been doing really efficient this year. That's better TA. But with crypto, it's just a guess. There's nothing backing crypto in the sense that it's not connected to a company or to some kind of product or some kind of creation system, other than the electricity and the amount of hardware put into it. I understand that, but honestly there's just nothing backing it. But now, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be like a Warren Buffett and say that, you know, just because something isn't being backed doesn't mean it's not worth anything. I mean, you could say the same thing about fiat. The government's just making it and they say, yeah, it's worth this much, but it can work that way with Bitcoin. The problem is with TA, everybody's wrong. So while many predicted Bitcoin's price would be at least above 10,000 by now, has failed to come to fruition. In fact, Bitcoin fell below 6,000 overnight, and it was around 5,900 at the time of writing on Sunday. So yeah, once it goes back up 10,000, all those analysts are going to be like, see, I told you so. I was only 3.5 months late, but I told you so. I bet that it would go over that, so, and it did. So look how smart I am. Look how smart I am. Oh, I gotta turn off my phone. People calling me. So at the end of these dips, it was only a few days ago that we reported on a reputable analyst weighing in on price targets. Bill Baruch, the president of Blue Line Futures, observed that the days of Bitcoin's wild price swings as nearing an end. He said, I'd like to say that a bottom is a process, not a price. Now that the price of volatility have come back down to earth, this bottoming process can begin. I see significant upside from here. Everybody's been saying that. Oh, it's 10,000. I see significant upside. I see at 9,000. I see significant upside. So when's it going to come? How about we all just, stop trying a little bit and just, how about we just start buying instead of just wondering when the bottom is and wondering when the top is? Just buy it, and then it'll go up. But right now, everybody FOMO'd on out, and people will FOMO back on in when they want to, when the price is already way too late at 15,000. So let's take a look at the CoinMarketCap here. Let's just do a refresh to see where we're at. 251 billion, still 251 billion. Let me show you what happened last night. We actually reached all the way down to about 235 billion. It was a huge dip. And then looking at the Bitcoin chart here as well, you can see that in action all the way down there. We reached $5,800, about 5,846 at the lowest point. on average. And the thing is that if Bitcoin gets too much lower, some major mining operations are going to have to shut down because they're going to end up paying too much electricity. Now, in a lot of places in the world, electricity is pretty cheap, especially in like Iceland, where you get like some hydrothermal power and stuff, or geothermal power. But at some point, if the price continues to go down, miners are going to have to shut down. Excuse me, and then transactions are going to really slow down. However, that could be a good thing, because if it's so slow and miners shut down, major miner operations slow down, the regular old Joes that have 2 or 3 or just one ASIC miner in their house, maybe got an S9 laying around, and right now it's only making you a few bucks. And I'm not sure how much the S9 miner is making right now. I'd guess probably just like $5 a day at the moment, which is really bad. But if some of these major miners shut down because of the electricity costs, because of their insane overhead, that could increase profits a lot for the individual person. And we could just kind of start again, if you will, and start up that difficulty again, because it's always set to 10-minute block times. It'll always be 10-minute block times unless there's a pretty dramatic change in the hash rate. So if everybody just stopped mining right now, or like some major one stopped mining, and the hash rate dropped by 50 or 60, 70% even, it would still be 10-minute block times, and it would still be just as difficult. But after so many blocks, the difficulty continues to go down, and then the profits would rise. So we're in a weird time right now, but we were saved by a whale buy, which I'm sure is going to go down, because this is pretty inorganic right here, this whale buy. So that whale is probably going to end up selling pretty soon. That looks like a whale buy to me, and you can see that we're being heavily manipulated. These are just not organic. This is sort of organic here, how it just ebbs and flows. It kind of goes up and down a little bit, and normally, it's going to be optimally, it's just going to be flowing upwards as such. But when you see this is a market buy here, or at least one, or maybe more, or maybe it was just one person buying a lot, and then other people bought in very, very quickly because they've seen the price going back up, and maybe they think, hey, the price is reversing, it's time to buy in and start riding it up. And then you can see big market sells, where this could have been just a market sell here, or it could have been all the way there. We don't really know, but these absolute walls here are a dead giveaway of somebody buying or selling a lot with a market buy, and not necessarily a limit buy, because if it was a limit buy, it would stay there for a while and it would just get ate away, and then it would start slowly, organically coming up again. And you would see sort of a stagnant line just going as people are trying to buy that wall before it breaks, and then the price can go up again. Because when you use a market buy, you have to buy everybody. So, somebody comes up to you and they say, hey, you want to buy 100 stock. So you go up, and let's say that stock is $100 average right now. And so you go up and you say, I want to buy 100 stock, and I want to buy it right now. And so the first person comes up to you and he says, I have 3 stock for $100 each. So there's 300 down, boom. And you got 3 stock, but you need 97 more, and you put in a market buy. So you're buying them all. And then the next person comes up to you and says, hey, I've got 5 of them for 101. I won't sell it for any less, 101. So you buy that. So that's how prices go up. So if you need that visualization in your head, just think of it that way. And that when you market buy, you buy 100 right now, depending on whatever the price is. And there might not be 100 stock at $100. One person might have some stock for 105, and he's like, I'm not selling it for any less than 105. So you have to buy everybody's all the way up there. And then once it gets to $105, you say, how many do you have? He says, I have 10, and you end up buying 10 from him at 105, and it ended up costing you more than what you would suspect at just buying 100 stocks at $100, because you're gonna have to buy more people's than just that, depending on how much volume there is in liquidity. So that's how that works. And so when a market buy happens like this, they're buying everybody. So there was one person right here at 61.85 that put in a limit order. He said, I don't want to sell it for any less than 61.85. So this person had to buy all of these all the way up there. Whoever was putting the price in at all these individual prices. So you can see that pretty clearly when you look at these, and some of them, and not all of them, may not be a whale buy, and it just might be pure coincidence because the market is pretty coincidental and random. But when you see a flat wall like that, it's a pretty dead giveaway. Whenever you see one go up, you see it go down. When you see one go up, eventually you see it go down, and it's just almost always the case. So prepare for another slide, in my opinion. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. As usual, I'll see you guys next time.